If you've ever spent time dissecting narratives, you already know the eternal storyteller's challenge. How on earth do you wrap up a massive, complex web of conspiracy, surveillance, and double crosses without relying on those cheap Hollywood cliches? It is incredibly difficult to stick the landing. Far too often, we see stories fall back on loud, forced shootouts or these sudden, totally unbelievable confessions just to tie up loose ends. But today, we're looking at an ending that is completely uncompromising. It's stark, it's haunting, and it operates like perfect clockwork, leaving the reader in absolute stunned silence. Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly do you end a complex story in a way that feels both totally inevitable and genuinely surprising? We're going to examine a flawless case study of narrative mechanics from a truly masterfully crafted story. We're breaking down an ending that avoids standard tropes entirely, and instead asks a devastating question. What happens when the cosmic machine simply stops?
To truly appreciate this, we need to ground ourselves in the world we're analyzing. This story is a perfect textbook example of gothic noir. It's a genre that blends dark atmospheric mystery with deeply fatalistic, morally ambiguous elements, and often these chilling supernatural undertones. This is the grim, high-stakes world of our protagonist, Larry, and his adversaries, the wealthy, heavy-handed Charles Smith and the esoteric mastermind, Gideon Jarboe. It's a messy world of bugging gear, occult lore, and pure human greed. So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the perfect story ending, and then we'll track this story's masterclass and three-act chronological design. Phase 1 is the setup, Phase 2 is the climax, and Phase 3 is the aftermath. Finally, we'll deconstruct the genius of this specific ending.
Starting with the perfect story ending, the pieces are already on the board.
You know, when you look at everything established in this gothic noir, memorable endings don't actually invent new things. They let established pieces like the Oracle book, the tracking chip, and Tatianna's trapped spirit fall naturally, kind of like dominoes. The structural backbone of this ending practically writes itself across 3 distinct chronological phases. We move from the quiet tension of Friday night's setup into the heavy supernatural climax of Saturday night, and finally into the stark, devastating aftermath of Sunday morning. Let's walk through exactly how this plays out. Phase 1, the setup, and Friday night's silent clue. The atmosphere here is just pure noir. We join our protagonist, Larry, sitting alone in his car on a rainy Friday night stakeout outside the magic carpet ride. Suddenly, he spots his trusted former colleague, Scott Stewart, stepping out of the rain and walking into the back of Jarboe's shop. This isn't just a clue, guys. This is a massive emotional gut punch. Stewart isn't some unknown random operative. He is a trusted former colleague. He's the invisible bridge here. Stewart was the one tracking the homing chip from the boathouse to the marina. He was the one logging camera footage. He's been feeding intel to both sides the entire time. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast at play. Charles Smith spent an absolute fortune expecting expensive, airtight professional security, but the reality? Stewart simply sold out to Jarboe for cold, hard cash. Now, what makes this the mark of a truly confident writer is that Larry chooses not to confront them. He doesn't pull a gun, he doesn't yell, he uses restraint. He sits in the shadows, checks his sights, and just watches. By keeping that secret locked inside his head, Larry gains the ultimate superiority of information, letting the villains blindly think they're still the masterminds. Phase 2, the climax, and Saturday night's séance. Because Larry didn't release that pressure valve on Friday, the heavy, candlelit atmosphere of the WEIGHTMAN estate is practically electric with subtext. When Tatianna's spirit finally manifests, the men in the room are expecting direct, simple answers. Smith wants her to name thieves. Jarboe wants her to validate his occult obsession. But instead, Tatianna speaks in fragmented, terrifying truths. She drops hints that implicate everyone at the table, exposing Smith's cruelty and Jarboe's dark motives. She leaves the human conspiracy messy and tangled instead of handing them a clean, courtroom-style confession. And then, Tatianna delivers the absolute linchpin of the entire narrative. She issues a chilling cosmic rule. She tells them, quote, "One more death in the proximity of the book ends its power forever." That single sentence changes the gravity of the entire room. So the crucial point is how this exact supernatural rule acts as a perfect narrative mechanism. It paralyzes these greedy, dangerous men in a tense Mexican standoff. Nobody dares to make a violent move, pull a weapon, or take out their rival because a single death renders the artifact they're fighting over completely worthless to all of them. They survive the night entirely because their own greed forces a gridlock of paranoia and a temporary ceasefire. Phase 3, the aftermath, and Sunday morning's cosmic void.
As the sun comes up over the damp coast of Port Williams, the physical tension of Saturday breaks into a hushed, stark, and quiet tragedy. We learn the devastating cost of Saturday night. Opening a spiritual doorway via the Oracle book isn't some free transaction. It requires a vessel. While Tatianna's spirit was pulled into the room to speak her lingering warnings, the spiritual doorway stayed open just a second too long. In a quiet, devastating turn of events, the doorway closes on Janet. Tragically, she is the ultimate price.
Because Janet passes away in the proximity of the Oracle book, the exact condition of the prophecy has suddenly been met. Tatianna's trapped spirit is finally released into the void, and the Oracle book itself is instantly rendered dead. When Smith or Jarboe check the book, the supernatural hum is just gone. The power is completely extinguished forever. It's now just ordinary, powerless, old leather, paper, and ink.
The Sunday reality for each character is incredibly bleak. Think about it. The destruction of the Oracle book renders every single scheme, wiretap, and double-cross utterly and absurdly meaningless. Charles Smith, who spent a fortune on high-tech surveillance, is left holding a heavy piece of dead leather. Gideon Jarboe's esoteric lore lied to him. Scott Stewart thought he pulled off the ultimate betrayal, but his blood money buys him literally nothing. In Larry, there's no final triumphant shootout. He's left in a quiet room, holding a cold hand, facing the raw reality of loss, with no sequel.
Let's move to and see how this builds into our final section, the genius of the ending and the cosmic joke. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how systematically this sequence delivers on the story's implicit structural promises. First, it answers the thematic question. Human greed and high-tech tradecraft are completely dwarfed by forces beyond their control. Second, it gives Larry a profound arc. He survives the tactical game, but carries the deep, quiet weight of knowledge. And third, it creates a legendary mystery. The reader is just left to marvel at the intricate human mechanics of the setup while staring at the cold, unyielding reality of the aftermath.
Ultimately, this tragedy hits with maximum impact because human tradecraft wasn't outsmarted by a better player on the board. All the bribes, the wiretaps, the backroom deals, they weren't defeated by a detective's brilliant deduction. Human ambition simply got swallowed by a cold, uncaring void. The book didn't just close, the universe literally unplugged the machine.
So I'll leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up today's explainer. How can you apply this cosmic joke to your own narrative endings? The next time you're building a dense, intricate trap of human ambition in a story, ask yourself, what happens if you don't force a loud confrontation? What happens if you just let the lights go out, leaving everyone standing over the ashes of their own pointless greed? That, my friends, is how you craft a genuinely unforgettable ending.